Now you may be wondering, how does the squat factor in? Should I just be swapping my 200 Kegels a day for 200 squats a day because squats are so valuable for the glutes? And we tend to think of, oh yeah, you want glutes, then squat. Well, squats are great. However, if you were really challenged to get out of the chair utilizing those parameters that I asked you to maintain, chances are you're not able to squat in a way that allows you to reap the benefits that help maintain your pelvic floor function. So if you didn't have the glute strength to get out of your chair without allowing your knees to shift forward, then you're not able to squat in a way that allows you to reap the glute benefits from a squat. And other factors that we have to take into consideration, it's not that there is one perfect ideal way to squat, but it's that we have a tendency to squat in a way that bypasses our limitations. And it's those very limitations that are contributing to our pelvic floor challenges in the first place. So when we squat, we want to be working our squat in a way that starts to bridge those gaps, that starts to mend our limitations. And so when we squat, maintaining a straight outside edge of the foot allows us to start working on mobilizing tension in the lower leg. Maintaining that parameter of a vertical shin allows us to shift from a more quad dominant squat, which is what happens when the knees drift forward, to a more hamstring and gluteal dominant squat. So those are the big factors, or I should say those are some of the factors that need to be considered when doing a squat. It's not, again, it's not that there's anything wrong with squats, but it's that we tend to do squats. We tend to do everything. We tend to move throughout our day in ways that bypass our limitations. We're really, really good at it, which is why we are the way we are. You know, you saw that hopefully really clearly just when I asked you to support your weight on one leg and look at how you stand. So you tend to stand with a more narrow stance, or at the very least, I'd be willing to bet money you tend to walk with a more narrow stance. So we need to, number one, become aware of our gaps, identify the gaps, which hopefully you've gotten some good information on your particular gaps today. And from that awareness, we then can start shifting how we move so that we're starting to move in ways that no longer support those gaps, but rather support the bridging of those gaps. And this brings our presentation to an end. And I want to tie it up with a bow. So we started with the title of the presentation, Why Kegels Aren't Enough. And I hope by now that it is quite clear to you why Kegels are not enough and why we must address many, many, many other areas if we want to support the function of the pelvic floor. Again, pelvic floor disorders are not a Kegel deficiency. We have to start looking at why is the pelvic floor weak to begin with. And it is not because you haven't been doing enough Kegels. It's because you've been doing all these other things. You've been moving in ways that compromise your ability to use the muscles that would support the function of your pelvic floor. In addition to, as we saw way at the beginning, all those other factors that need to be considered. When considering Kegels, some things to keep in mind are, if you want to do Kegels, are you doing them correctly? Because there have been studies that shown a high percentage of people think they're doing a Kegel, and what they're actually doing is bearing down on their pelvic floor, which is not going to be doing what you want it to do. That's not, when you do a Kegel, you're wanting to contract the pelvic floor muscles and lift up. And if instead you're bearing down, then you're reinforcing the very problem that you're trying to correct by doing the exercise. The other thing that needs to be considered when doing Kegels is, will it be beneficial for you to increase the tension in your pelvic floor? We saw way back in the beginning, the length of the muscle is going to influence the amount of force that the muscle can generate. If you have a tendency for your pelvic floor muscles to be in a shortened position, do you want to be doing an activity that is reinforcing a shortened, tight position? Or would your time be better spent doing activities that stabilize and help restore length to the pelvic floor muscles? And then when we're considering pelvic floor strength and pelvic floor function, as we talked about earlier, are there other factors that need to be addressed? We have to start looking beyond Kegels, and we have to take a whole body approach when we're looking at the function and when we're looking at restoring function to the pelvic floor. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation today. If you are looking for more information, you're welcome to visit my blog at lisallc.com/blog. And I'm also on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Gillespie Partners in Wellness. I post little video snippets there and tips for alignment, as well as interesting articles that I come across. If you have questions after viewing this, feel free to email me, lisa@lisallc.com, and I will do my very best to respond. Thank you so much, and I look forward to crossing paths with you in the future. Take care.